And good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining this partner session, How a Series of Public-Private Initiatives Has Driven Next-Level Economic Success. Before we get started, here are a few housekeeping items. This is an express session. It's 20 minutes with about 5 to 10 minutes transition time to allow you to get to the next track of the sessions, which begins at 3 p.m. All attendees will be muted throughout the session, so please use the chat if you have any comments or questions for our speakers. We'll use the last 5 minutes for Q&A, and we'll take as many questions from the chat that we can. The session is being recorded and will be available tomorrow on the event site, so please feel free to share with colleagues who may have missed it. So now I will hand things over to Amity Farr, who's the Executive Vice President for POWER10, and Gwinnett Chamber CEO Nick Masino to get today's presentation started. Guys, take it away.
Thank you very much. As Lindsay said, I'm Amity.
And I'm Nick Masino with the Gwinnett Chamber of Commerce.
Thank you very much for joining us today. If people would like to, in the chat, just say where you're from, what chamber you're from, that would be great. We wish we could see you all and get to know you all, but as Lindsay said, this is an express session and we don't want to go over time, so we'll get right to it. So as Lindsay said, I'm with POWER10. We run major and capital campaigns to fund multi-year strategic initiatives for chambers of commerce and economic development organizations. We're based in Atlanta, Georgia, but we have clients across the United States. And I'm joined by Nick, who is one of our favorite clients. Don't tell anybody else I said that. But we want to talk today about the successes the Gwinnett County and the Gwinnett Chamber have had with running a series of multi-year strategic initiatives. And we've been privileged to be able to help them do that for the past 3. So what is a strategic initiative? I know many of you all already know, but thought it might be helpful to just outline this in the beginning. Well, it's a plan or program of work. And usually we're funding multi-year initiatives. So 3, 4, 5 years at a time. And it's community-wide focus. It's not just focused on delivering results for chamber members only. It's addressing critical community challenges, community problems, and trying to solve those, trying to resolve those. And we have measurable goals. It's really important that there's a very clear ROI because we are asking for investment in these community initiatives, and we'll get to that in a moment. But often the goals are around changing stats that represent challenges in the community, or having a jobs goal or a capital investment goal. So as I mentioned, typically these are multi-year initiatives, and we're getting everybody in the community, kind of the A team, the top business, education, governmental leaders involved to tackle these big community problems. We are mostly involved in developing the plan and then seeking funding for the multi-year implementation of the plan. And typically this capital campaign method that we use is helpful because we need to bring kind of more dollars to the table than just incremental increases in membership dues and those kinds of things will accomplish. So without further ado, I'll get a bit into our case study today. And so Nick can share a bit about what he's accomplished in Gwinnett in just a moment, but just wanted to give you a little bit of background. I imagine many of you are familiar with Gwinnett County. It is a huge community just northeast of Atlanta, Georgia, population approaching 1 million already. And almost 15 years ago, the Chamber decided that they wanted to have a significant focus on economic development in the community. And so they founded Partnership Gwinnett, which is a public-private initiative to proactively drive economic development and growth in the county. It's a division of the Chamber. So they've had some amazing successes, as we've outlined here on the slide. So almost 30,000 new direct jobs that the Partnership Gwinnett and the Chamber have had a hand in bringing to or growing in Gwinnett, and over $2 billion, yes, billion with a B, in capital investment. So it's really exciting. They have taken this capital campaign approach, and we are now helping them with their 4th campaign, so their 4th 5-year initiative with a $10 million goal, and it will fund the initiative for the period from 2022 to 2026. So we are going to now have a little Q&A. You'll get to hear from Nick, who I've learned a huge amount from in the past, I think 7 or 8 years since I first had that honor of getting to work with him. And he's a very strong leader in the Chamber and Economic Development space. So Nick, thank you for being with us today.
My pleasure, Amity, and the pleasure's all mine. And I love working with you and Sean and your team as well.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, let's get right to it. So for the first question here, what community challenges and opportunities have you addressed through these multiple multi-year initiatives?
Sure. Yeah. And I feel like it's important to start in the beginning. In 2006, the Gwinnett Chamber, really active, large suburban chamber, I was a member of, I was actively connected with, was on the board. They were never doing proactive economic development. They were doing reactive economic development. If they had a prospect that came from a referral from a utility company, real estate broker, or the Department of Economic Development at the state, they would respond. It was reactionary. And they would do a great job with that response. But there was no proactive economic development. And a plan was put together in 2006 to fund a proactive, go out, recruit, retain, and expand business plan. And so the first challenge was to actually start doing proactive economic development like the rest of the region, rest of the country was doing. And so goal one, just actually get it going, get people excited about it. And Amity, I thought you said something really important in your introduction, which is you've got to get everybody. I think you said maybe the A players or the whatever, but it's got to be everybody. And my key to success, our key to success in Gwinnett is we got everybody. The people that were naysayers, you get everybody in the tent. So it's everybody's plan, everyone's strategy.
Excellent, excellent. And as you can see here on the slide, this may be a walk down memory lane for you. We have the covers of the cases for support. So basically this is an outline of Partnership Gwinnett, the Gwinnett Chamber, and the 5-year initiative. So here we have the first one on the far left. And so from least recent on the far left to most recent.
Yeah.
How would you say these initiatives have affected the county and beyond, really? I know you're a big regional player. What would you say are some of the major outcomes of these initiatives?
Sure. So as you mentioned, we're at 4.0 right now. We just finished our work getting the plan put together, and now we're working directly with POWER10 to raise the funds to be able to do the work. So we uniquely named them Partnership Gwinnett 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, and 4.0. And they each addressed a different issue, but you have to back up because in that strategy process, when you get everybody in the tent, you identify community challenges, and it's the community that tells you what we need to work on the next 5 years. But we never lose sight of someone's got to get up every day to recruit, retain, and expand businesses. And so we've got to do the main function of the initiative, a Partnership Gwinnett, and then do whatever came out of the study. So obviously the first one was just get going and get the work going. We did it, and it was specifically spelled out 3 goal areas. One was business recruitment. Number 2 was workforce excellence. And the third was the community development. And that was kind of that silo that held everything else. But what was real clear when we were coming out of the first 5-year initiative, and now we're in the middle of the global meltdown, which happened a year and a half into our first strategy, we really wanted to focus on our international recruitment. That was something that we felt like we had a leg up on and we could differentiate ourselves. But then we actually funded an actual strategy to do international recruitment. In the third one, so now we've just finished 10 years, we're looking at the next 5 years, there was a real opportunity to actually staff the talent and workforce development side, which is something that was always a key, it was always goal 2 for us, but we never had the capital funds to actually staff it. So it ended up being a lot of people's jobs. And we have the 12th largest school system in the country. We have a 4-year college, 2-year college, and it was always part of our jobs to make sure that they were working with us and making sure that we were communicating the needs for the talent for the future. But again, when it's not your full-time job, those things that have a timeline or a deadline always get done first. So we really believe we had to raise more funds to actually staff those. And so we've actually, through that 3.0 strategy, we now have 2 full-time people that get up every day to work on talent development, leadership development, workforce development, which really has made our job so much easier. So the economic development team goes out and recruits the company, gets the opportunity for the project. But when they close the project team would then backfill and work on all those things we committed to make sure their talent needs were taken care of. Well, now we get to hand that off to the service team that are actually making all the connections with the public and private workforce development, so that recruitment team can continue to go out and in a way sell, but they're selling the community. This last one, the remaining goal, we were fully staffed in goal 1. Goal 2 was that community side that again, we were just all working on together. But the real focus in our community, because we blew up in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. So now it's time for that suburban redevelopment. So our goal is to raise all the funds that we had previously had, plus more, for us to have a full-time person that can work on the redevelopment of our community. And we're really interesting because we're a large county, and Amity, I hope when the census information comes out, we actually break 1 million people. But we also have 16 municipalities within our county. So there's just a lot of different areas, a lot of different partners, and it's a lot of work to bring all those folks together. You can imagine I have to deal with 16 mayors every day, then a county chair. And so that's a lot of work engaging all of those leaders. Right. So for us, redevelopment was our remaining goal that we had not fully staffed.
Well, you're pretty well placed to do that, being a former mayor yourself, right?
Yes, recovering elected official.
Right. Excellent. Thank you, Nick. Well, and finally, because I know we are rather tight on time, we could probably talk all afternoon about this, but something some people wonder about is how are these multi-year initiatives different than the rest of the chamber's work? And couldn't you just kind of do this with your current chamber funding? Why do you have to have these separate initiatives and campaigns to fund them?
Yeah, it's a great question. The reality is, in the previous model, when the chamber had a division, which was economic development, it was 1.5 people. That's all they were funded to do. And we were able to be very, very good at reactive responding to inquiries, taking people on building tours. And that was really it. Now we are fully staffed at 11 full-time people that get up every day just to do economic development. And any chamber president on the call, if you're the largest chamber in America, the smallest, could you imagine having 11 people, pitching your community every day? So we're just able to do so much more. And they don't get involved in the traditional chamber stuff. They are focused every day on recruiting, retaining. But the other thing that really we were able to do so much more with is because we created a separate 501c that was separated from the chamber. This initiative was created by the chamber, but then it was the whole community came together. And we received funding from our county government, our public schools, our 16 municipalities. We have community improvement districts. They all fund it. So we receive $1 million in funds outside of the traditional chamber funding to fund economic development. So if someone called our county or our city and said, hey, we'd like to talk to you about moving to your community, they would say, great, let me get you in touch with Partnership Gwinnett, because we're the economic development recruitment arm. Now, they all have folks too that we work with, and we all work together. It is truly a partnership. So we were just never able to be as aggressive than we were without doing this. And again, if it was part of your job, then only part of it gets done. Those are full-time people focused on those initiatives every day.
Right. Well, thank you very much. I think we're about to the time where we would love to hear from those participating and see if people have questions, which unfortunately I can't see the questions. I'm not sure if Nick can, but I think Lindsay.
I can.
I can also help here. So Nick, I know you just talked about this a little bit, but someone did ask about how the partnership was set up logistically. So it sounds like you did set up a separate 501c6. Is that right?
Correct. So it's interesting because we're receiving governmental funding. We created a separate 501c6, which is called Partnership Gwinnett PFE, Public Funding Entity, and all the funds go into that. There are 5 voting board members One's the county, actually there's 7. It's the counties represented, the school system, the cities, the CIDs, and actually our CVB is a large funder as well. So it's actually, I serve on the board, so does the head of Partnership Gwinnett, but we're non-voting board members. But they approve our budget. And that each community in each state has their own funding laws, and this just meets Georgia funding laws, and it works really well for us, and it in a way keeps us separated, so that elected officials and the government entities are making decisions, and our contract is set up very much like it would be for an engineer or architect, where they're doing work for the local government. It works for us, and it's worked since 2013. We created that process. Prior to that, all the money went under the traditional chambers 501c6, and it mixed too much. It wasn't as clean, I would say. And we like this better. It's worked really well. I also see someone's interested in the brochures, and I have PDFs of all 4 of these brochures, and whatever Lindsay tells me to do to get to the participants, I'm happy to do that.
I'll just, we'll reach out to you. We'll get them to you. We'll get them out for the on-demand session for sure. So one of the questions is also about a sample of a contract. If that's something you're willing to provide, we can get that from you too.
Sure. So you mean the governmental contracts?
Sure. It's just a sample of that contract.
Yeah. I would say if Rebecca wants to reach out to me individually, I would rather not have our governmental I mean, they're open to public scrutiny, but
you don't want them flying around just willy-nilly?
that would be, I mean, hey, Nick@GwinnettChamber.org if you happen to talk with anybody.
So here's that last question we'll end up with, that kind of talks about your partnership with POWER10. So did you have your economic development initiatives for Gwinnett kind of set out before you started working with POWER10, or did POWER10 help you identify those, streamline that? Talk a little bit about that partnership with them.
Sure. The answer is in the beginning, I don't think POWER10 existed. I think so we were using a firm that's actually not in business anymore, the Market Street Services, which was a big, a common household name at ACC for decades. And then I met them when they started between the 2012 and 2016 2.0. And so they've always helped us on the funding side of it. We used EY actually in the last one to come up with the strategy. But I'm certain POWER10 can help you with both.
And we actually have done both. We have followed those deep dive economic development strategic planning firms, and we've also helped put together a plan, whether you already have something in draft form or you have just some ideas on a cocktail napkin. So we're happy to work with you wherever you are, meet you wherever you are.
And POWER10 really worked well with Market Street, and they worked well with EY. So it was very linear. There was no one stepping on each other's toes. Okay, why a C6 versus a C3? I know we have to wrap up probably. So I was not the president and CEO when it was formed. And so the chamber was comfortable with the C6. It should have been a C3 when we started Partnership Gwinnett. So it really wasn't my choice. I had to do what my boss told me to do. If hindsight's 2020, it should have been a C3. And we actually have, thanks to ACC, we actually now have a chamber fund, which is a C3, non-political, non-lobbying.
And
Perfect.
we often start working with clients who don't yet have a C3, and we help kind of oversee and shepherd that entire process. So happy to speak with anyone if they have questions about setting up a foundation.
Well, that's great. That's all the time we have. Fastest 20 minutes in the chamber world, right? So thank you, Amity and Nick, for sharing your time and experience with all of us today. Thank you, attendees, for joining us. Again, the session was recorded. We'll have it available on the event site tomorrow. We'll get those brochures from Nick so everyone can look at all the beautiful work they've done. Please visit POWER10's virtual booth and profile page for more information on POWER10. And a reminder that the next Partner Solution track starts at 3 o'clock Eastern. So we'll see you then. Thank you both.
Thank you very much.